say. Anyway, hi guys, welcome to the Quit of the Week, which is actually just a live recording of Quit Happens of Jay. Jay has an incredible story. We're gonna go ahead and just get started. Ready?
All right.
Let's do it.
I'm ready.
Thanks so much for being here with us, Jay.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Jay is, as you would have heard in the intro, in the podcast version, he is an author, he is a show host, and a filmmaker. And we will put in the show notes links to all the amazing things you do.
Thank you.
However, of course, but even when I was introduced to you by Dr. Kien Vu, who was on my podcast 2 episodes ago, and 2 weeks ago, because this episode will not be released for a few more weeks, but late September, Kien was on. But Kien invited me to LA to record him, and then he was like, turn the tables, you're gonna be on my show. So I was like, oh, okay. And then he said, man, you've got to meet my friend Jay. He is also a really successful strategic quitter. I was like, do tell. And Jay's story started, he's now, all those things I just mentioned, but he was at some point in time a police officer back in Virginia.
Yeah, back in the day.
Back in the day. Now, you have many quits along the way. So we're going to start in the police life. And what first led you to realize, okay, this is not my forever job, and we're going to maybe make a transition?
Right. Well, while I really enjoyed the police department, it was my first real job, I'd say, and easily something that I could have done for the rest of my career. But, there came a time when, I was always a curious kid, and I had a lot of ambition. And while the police department surely provided plenty of adrenaline for me and crazy, harrowing moments, moments which were probably crazier than I realized at the time. There are things I wanted to do. I think I had this entrepreneurial spirit came out. I wanted to do, this and that and make money. And at the time, we were talking about this earlier. At the time, they were paying me $20,000 a year, and a little bit of overtime for going to court. But basically, that was it. And it's like, this is not sustainable for me.
Yeah. And at that point, what did you think your next move was going to be?
Well, I wanted to go back to school, and so that's what I did. And it was actually, I was in the police department in a break from college. I had gone to school, I left, I went into the police department, and then I really wanted to finish my degree up. And when I went back, I went in as a pre-med, as a biology major. And so I started to go through that, and I finished all the pre-med requirements, all the science and labs and all that kind of stuff. And somewhere along the way, I switched to a business degree, and I majored in finance.
Wow.
Yeah. And before I left college, I had taken the MCAT, the LSAT, and the GMAT.
This is why I love Jay. Who else besides me and like a handful of people have taken, I have not taken the GMAT, I took the GRE, but I have taken all the rest of the other ones. That is a small set of people who have tortured themselves that much.
Yeah, and torture. Well, that's what happens when you're undecided, right? You just say, I'm just going to take them all. And that's probably where I learned to become such a good test taker.
I can imagine.
Because I've taken plenty of tests along the way, being involved in especially regulated industries.
Yeah.
So I graduated with a finance degree from Virginia Tech in business.
Okay. And we were talking before we started recording, because the police officer life, that sounds like something to me that people would build an identity upon. And I had asked Jay, is that something you had built an identity on, and was that identity hard to quit? And he had an interesting take on that.
Yeah, my take was, for me, it wasn't difficult. That was a no-brainer for me. But it was difficult for the people around me. When I was leaving, my colleagues were like, you know how hard it is to get, how many people want this job? Going back, when I was between the fire department and the police department, at the time, I'd entered into this testing group where there were something like 600 applicants, and they hired 5 of us. So the competition, I don't know the way it is right now, but the competition was really stiff, needless to say. And And so my colleagues thought I was crazy for leaving this, this secure job. It's a good job. It's an in-demand job. It's one that carries status and plenty of adrenaline if you want it. And there was upward mobility. And I could have easily done that, like I said, for the next few decades and then retired and then gone to do something else, perhaps, in my mid-40s.
Yeah.
But I wanted to leave, and it bothered a lot of people. While my parents have always been supportive of whatever I did, they were always like, "Are you sure? Do you want to do this? That's a good job."
Right.
Government jobs, you keep this. You really have to mess up to get fired.
That is also accurate.
But I've gotten to a place now where I like to say that I'm basically unemployable because I need my time off. If something comes up, I want to take off. Of course, in anything, when you're self-employed, you find that you're actually working more hours than as an employee. But at least I can structure my days, my weeks, the way that I want to. And if something goes wrong, I only have myself to beat up for it.
Right, which is huge, I think. You feel much more empowered because otherwise if something goes wrong and it happened to you because somebody else made the decisions, then it's a very disempowered feeling.
Right.
And I think that makes a lot of just difference in the headspace, right? Like even if you are working more hours, feeling empowered for more hours versus feeling disempowered for fewer hours, I think at the end of the day it's still a slightly, it's better. At least
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
So when your family was questioning your quit, how did you deal with that?
Too bad. No, they knew how I was, and I was going to do what I wanted to do, and I think for a while they were playing a little reverse psychology on me, like yeah, go do whatever you want, go out and you're going to have to be looking. You're not going to get this regular paycheck, and you have to be looking for your own way, and et cetera, et cetera. And it was a mixed blessing, especially for my mom, because the police department, that's not exactly a desk job, a safe job.
Right.
And I think she was happy that I was off the street and not in those situations. My dad, of course, he's like, yeah, man, that's so cool. And my brothers and everything else. And but I don't know. I think overall, they supported my decision and let me do what I was going to do. And plus, I left to go back to school, which they really liked that idea.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
they went, oh, finally, he's going to be a doctor.
Oh. That's amazing. Like, sure, think that, Mom.
I have a joke with my mom when I was in banking. When I left there, I had the position of managing director, MD. Mom, I've arrived. Your dreams have come true.
I love that. That's so cute. Aw. Well, that's admirable because there are a lot of people who get stuck in the quitting process because there's so much family influence. And it's great that they had that, okay, we want to protect you, but still let you expand your wings. And you're right, it doesn't hurt that you're like, I'm going to go be a doctor or whatever the guy's was. So what was your next step after you get out, you got this finance degree? What was your next career move?
Well, I went, when I was back in school, I actually worked because I could not work, and I worked in a bar, actually, and because I was kind of an older student, the owner of the bar kind of gave me more responsibility, and so I ran a crew, kind of the bar operations, and there were a lot of kids around and schedules to manage, but I actually ended up acquiring the bar from him. I bought the bar from him, and then opened another kind of a sister bar in the neighboring college town, which was Radford University. I got a great offer there to build a a custom facility and do that. And so that's what I did. I did that, and then I sold it, and I was getting kind of restless again. And so I left for a while. I went down to Florida. I opened a gym. I went down with a friend of mine, and we made a go of that. I sold that entity, and that's when I came back up to Virginia and went to law school. I went to the University of Richmond. I didn't finish that. I never took the bar because, frankly, as I got into it, I thought, okay, what do I want to do? And I got really interested. You would think I go criminal law. And originally I thought, okay, that's okay. But then I was more looking into it. It's the most successful ones are defense attorneys. And while there were plenty of students that I went to school with that said, yeah, this is going to be great. And I'm only going to defend the innocent people. So, right, you're going to starve.
Exactly.
And in principle, that's okay, but I didn't want to do that. And so I started looking at corporate law and securities law specifically, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. Because, I'd had enough adversity in my police department career, and securities, SEC work is more collaborative, because you're just trying to get deals done. So everybody's, in that regard, they're working for the same goal. And so it was a lot less adversarial, so that really interested me. But there's still a lot of reading,
Yes.
And I did, I'm looking at 300 pages to read tonight, and 50 pages in, I'm falling asleep. It's like, oh my God, how am I going to survive this?
Right?
Yeah.
Like the actual field of law is super interesting to me.
Yeah.
But I distinctly remember studying at a Starbucks for medical school, and there was a lawyer who worked there. And it was kind of comical because he was such like an average white dude. And he had to have been, I never spoke with him, he had to have been like a music agent of some sort, because he was always talking about rapper names. And it was just hilarious for me to hear but Gangsta Slim said such and such. He was there until 10 o'clock every night. And I was like, wow. I mean, I was in medical school this way before I went to law school, but I thought law takes forever. It seems like fun, but man, that's a lot of hours.
Yeah, it is.
And when you went to law school, how far did you get? Did you?
This is my first year.
Just your first year.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. What had happened is I had a friend who was working in the securities industry, and she had made her way up to the top executive levels of a firm in Denver. And she had heard kind of my experience in law school. And she said, look, why don't you come work with me? Try it out for a bit and see how you like it. And I went to talk to the dean, and the dean said, yeah, sure, if this is what you feel you need to do. You actually have 5 years to complete your 3, so you could take 2 years off, theoretically. And I never went back. I didn't know it when we were having the conversation. But so I went into investment banking. I got my stockbroker's license, and I started taking tests. I ended up with, over the next couple of years, I ended up with 7 securities licenses. Wow. Yeah, so I had the basic uniform securities that everybody has to get. There's Series 7 for stockbrokers. But then I also got, all the rest were principal licenses, so that I could, so I can run a department. And then they need a license to be the controller, the financial operations principal, and then the options principal, and then the trading principal, and what other were it? Let's see, options principal, a registered investment advisor. And so I got all these licenses, and I didn't really need all of them at the time, but it was like, I'm just going to take these tests because this is cool. And somewhere along the way, the head of the corporate finance department and another guy who worked at Beverly Hills and we left and we started our own firm in Beverly Hills, which is what brought me from Denver to Los Angeles.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we were doing these .com deals. This is late 90s when the internet was really taking off. crazy valuations, but big fees. And at the time, I was focused on making money, and this was a good way to get it. I mean, if you remember the .coms,
Yeah.
Something would open in the morning, and by the end of the day, it's double, triple, whatever. It was crazy. So, so that's what I did for a while, and I really enjoyed the part of that I liked is one, it's project based, kind of like the police department. You show up at work in the police department, you don't know what's going to happen, but no 2 days are alike. And with this, we take on a client, we go take them public. Me as the syndicate manager, I was kind of the connection between our firm and other firms where we'd share our deals. And so I would take our client, usually the CEO and the CFO, and we'd do a roadshow, is what they call it. And we'd present the company's offering to other firms internationally. And we'd do this travel, we do this little dog and pony show. We'd go to institutional investors, big funds. And then when we did our public offering, they'd put their orders in, we'd buy it, and the stock would pop usually. Sometimes not, but at this time, they were just going gangbusters. So I was really popular in the firm and with my friends because there were hot issues. People knew were hot issues, so they wanted to buy it for their clients, and so they're stars. And then my friends would be hitting me up because I can't buy it for my own account or for my family. So,
right.
It was the other people around me.
Yeah.
So, that was fantastic. The 9/11 came around, 2001 happened, and it really killed the internet. I mean, the internet stocks that boom was still kind of cooling down already, but that really just put the nail in the coffin, and all these smaller public offerings of under $100 million, they kind of evaporated. And so my role changed a lot into more advisory work, and these first day pops, they just didn't exist anymore.
So it wasn't quite the excitement that there was initially.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I started looking around again.
Gotcha. Before we get to where you looked, let's rewind just a second to the moment that you realized, okay, I'm not going back to law school. Because I think a lot of people, this is quit we have not talked about in 41 episodes, is quitting an educational path that may have some debt with it. So I don't know if your institution, was it expensive, inexpensive? Had you already taken out some loans for your law school?
Yeah, just small.
Okay.
University of Richmond is a very it's a small private university, very prestigious. One of the most beautiful campuses that I'd ever been to, because there was there were two sides and separated by this big lake, and I mean it's just the west end of Richmond. It's not in the city. It's really just in a nice part of town. So and I'd taken a small loan, but I funded it mostly, as far as I remember, with the exit money that I got from the police department.
Gotcha. Okay. So it comes to the time where you realize, okay, I'm about to come up to 5 years. I cannot go back or I guess it's not even 5 years, because at some point you have 5 years to finish. So essentially you had the 2-year period.
Yes.
Do you remember that thought process, or were you just so engrossed in the security stuff that it didn't cross your mind?
Well, as that deadline passed, I had already made my decision, I think, way before that.
Okay.
Because I was very fortunate. I've been fortunate a lot of times in my life. People will go into that industry. They go in as a stockbroker, and they're a stockbroker 20 years later. Not that that's bad or anything like that, but for somebody that's ambitious like me, I wanted to kind of get up there and do the big deals. So most stockbrokers are dealing with retail accounts, people that just want to trade stocks. Some accounts are bigger than others, but you're kind of on the retail level. You're not. It's not investment banking where you're out there raising hundreds of millions of dollars for big companies that want to just expand globally or internationally or whatever, and really just take over the world. And that's the part I wanted to get involved in. And so, the part where I was fortunate is that the friend of mine who brought me into the firm, I went to work with her in the syndicate department, which, like I mentioned, they're the kind of connection to all the other firms. So in shadowing her for a year or so, I made those same relationships. And then she left rather suddenly, and it got married to one of our clients who we had just done this huge offering for. And I'm not sure how much notice she gave. There's plenty. I mean, she's left in very good terms. Like, the CEO just adored her, so whatever she wanted was great. And but still, it wasn't enough time to really train somebody else. So I got the job by default. Maybe unfairly to the people that have been there 10 years or more. But regardless, I was primarily positioned to take that over. So, not 2 years into that job, I was, what was my title? I was one of the vice presidents. I think maybe, yeah, I don't know.
So you did not fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy. You weren't like, I've put a year of law school in, I've got to finish this because I put that year in.
No.
I love it. Yeah, these are different places where people get tripped up in the quitting process. It's like they realize something isn't for them, or maybe law could have been for you, but there's something better for you. But there's that, I've already spent this much time and this much money. I mean, I quit grad school halfway through multimedia design grad school before going to the other 20 grad schools. And I had that same thing, like, I paid for a year, and I've gone for a year, and everybody said, like, why don't you because mine was only one more year. And I said, if I didn't want to, if I didn't enjoy the first year, and why would I dump more time and more money into it? So that's the sunk cost fallacy for all of you listening. If you're ever having that thought, like, I'm in a relationship, it's not great, but I've been here 3 years. Well, if it's not great in these 3 years, is it going to be great in the next 3 plus? Probably not. So, okay, love that was not even a consideration in your world. So now we've gotten to the point where you are, essentially a little bit anxious again to change to something else. What was your next move?
After banking, well, let's see, what did I do? So I started to get restless, is what I was saying. But then, and at that time, I was living in Newport Beach in Orange County, and I'd seen the real estate market take off there. And so I got a real estate broker's license so that I can open my own firm. And of course, having this finance background, I said, mortgage banking, that sounds cool. As opposed to brokering, where I'm kind of the middleman between people. I had a partner who I was introduced by my neighbor, who was actually an attorney. And this guy, it was kind of he was a very intelligent guy, but he's kind of a wheeler and dealer. He could get stuff done, and I like that about him, because he really was one of these guys that's really believed that you could do anything, and that he was really a limitless type of mindset guy. And so we partnered up when he found some investors who wanted to fund our mortgage banking, meaning they give us a line of credit. We'd go lend the money out to people who needed it for their real estate projects, and that worked out fantastically. And we got a lot of clients, a lot of high-end clients. We found ourselves buying exotic cars, so that we were kind of in that club, with the people that were spending the big dollars. And that was, we like to tell ourselves that was just a marketing strategy, but it wasn't bad, driving around in Lamborghinis and Ferraris and Porsches all the time. We even had this big gaudy Rolls Royce. So that's the way that worked for a while, until the real estate market crashed. And unfortunately, I was very heavily concentrated my personal assets in real estate. And so that was quite devastating for me. And it also really, as our clients started defaulting because their properties were going upside down, it really ruined my business as well. But that's just another. It's a lesson. When things bad happen like this, you have to find the golden lining in it, and you have to frame it in a way that's empowering, not weakening you. And so, as devastating as that was, you have to look at it and say, okay, how can I tell myself that this worked out for the best? And like the sunk cost into law school, you have to look at it as kind of the cost of your education. And I've had a very expensive education. Very, very expensive.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I like the way you frame that.
Yeah.
Because we were talking beforehand and you'd said, I have many failures along the way. By the way, I don't necessarily see any big failures in this. Like, you did not personally bring down the housing market, but you said all these failures led to where you are now. You wouldn't take back any of them. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, is that's your education, is the learning through trying. Sometimes they fail, sometimes they don't fail, sometimes you succeed, but then you're still it's all a learning process.
Right. It's Carol Dweck wrote a wonderful book called Mindset. She talks about the growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. And it really goes with that. You can't look at your failures as a personal failure. When you look at failures as kind of that next step to learning, right? They say, how do it go? You don't fail, but kind of you just fall forward.
Yes.
Right.
You fail forward.
Yeah, you're failing forward, right? So that's the way I look at it, right? Every failure is one step closer to where I ultimately need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you said you had to develop a mindset around where losing everything, as you had said, was reframed. Was that something you were able to do in the moment, or was that more of a hindsight?
No. I say I wouldn't take back these failures. I didn't necessarily feel that way at the moment. Because it's why me?
But my role's ruined.
Right. Well, I didn't really miss that. But, but there were things that I did miss. I liked my ocean view house, and
So it's a process of looking back and in hindsight realizing, no, this all happened for, if not for a reason, at least I can take the good out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Not just regret, I did this, lament it, essentially. We found the silver lining.
Yeah. And, when the real estate crash happened, and that was probably the most, financially anyway, the most devastating loss of my careers. It took me down for a while. I was really, it froze me. I didn't know what to do. And I don't usually I would be able to kind of jump up and go, okay, I'm going to go this way now. But that one really, it really affected me because so much had to change. And it took a bit. And I think the most difficult part in all that was as I started to kind of dive into personal development and seeking out people. Now I'd followed Tony Robbins for quite a while, decades up to that point, but it was kind of in the background here. And I guess he's the one who kind of got me thinking, look, there's more to this. You can reframe this and everything. So I started looking into other people like him. Not only these business icons who'd been very successful and gone through the same ups and downs in their lives, but also authors and academics and these elite athletes and people who, thought leaders who had some really valuable advice and whose perspectives I really wanted to learn from. But as I started to do that and improve myself, improve my mindset, there were people around me who weren't so positive about it. they couldn't frame it that way. It was always bringing back kind of that negative stuff. They go, look, haven't you learned your lesson? You failed already. Go get a job and be safe. And I don't know what you're doing right now. You want to go to Hollywood. You know the chances of failure there are like everybody.
1,000%.
Yeah, and then you'd start to do something new, right? And it was like, yeah, that's cool, but it's never going to work. And that negativity was so toxic. And so the most difficult part of that transition, I think, was having to eliminate or exclude these people who were previously really close to me from my life.
That's a huge quit. Quitting the toxic people.
Yeah.
I was just on Good Morning La La Land this morning. They asked me that very question: how do you quit your toxic friends or your toxic relationships, which may be your family, your friends, your significant other? And I said, well, it's very different if it's family versus friend versus the significant other. But in your case, it was friends. How did you go about kind of weeding out the people that you didn't want in your inner circle anymore?
Well, it wasn't like a conversation. It was more like a ghosting. And in that regard, it wasn't too hard, to create the distance. It was hard emotionally because, I really like that person. They had good qualities, and I think they're a good person. But if they're not going to support me, I can't have that in my life. They would say that you're the average of this 5 people, and I truly believe that. I had this discussion on another show yesterday. We were talking about that, and that these 5 people, these influences, can include virtual mentors, people who you may never meet. If you're listening to somebody's content, their podcast, their courses, whatever, and they're in your ear every day, then they have a huge influence on you. So those virtual mentors can be part of that crowd, right? And they will, you listen to those guys, and they're people you respect, and you like their message, and they have a positive message. They will up-level your game, even though that you may never even meet them. They're not in your immediate circle, but mentally they're in your head.
Yeah. They say it's the 5 people you surround yourself with, and think about a podcast that you listen to every day. You may not see your friend every day, maybe not even every week, but if you're listening to the same podcast over and over, then you're surrounding yourself with that person's voice and thoughts, and even more so than your in-person friends.
Yeah. It's just like anybody else. You'll start thinking like them, and adopting their attitudes and beliefs, their mindsets. So that was very valuable to me. But I didn't want these toxic people, their chatter, to infect me in a negative way. I was already going through a difficult part. I needed, I needed the support.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I got plenty of it from my family. That was my immediate family. There was no problem. But there were people, I'm not going to name names, like extended, and people who had been friends for years, that just were not down with what I was doing. And it's like, hey, this is my way. That's the way I'm going to do it. I'm not. The way I saw it is they're limited, not me. They have that fixed mindset. If that's the way they want to live, that's great. Some people have to be, and some people have to be employees, right? Because they like the certainty in their lives. They value certainty more than kind of the variety and the uncertainty. I like certainty, but I think I value variety much more, and I'm willing to not have that security. And because when you're in a job like that, like what I'm doing right now, you're always out of a job. You're always looking for a new job. Where am I going to get my paycheck a year from now? I have no idea, but I know I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah.
If you have, that's another mindset. If you have that resourcefulness or that figure-outableness about you, then, no problem.
Yeah.
And I've always been able to make it happen. So, these reference experiences, as they go forward, that's how you grow into these sort of mindsets. You can't just read my book, and go, okay, I got it. No, I don't. that's unreasonable. You have to take baby steps, try it, you'll get some wins, and then you'll try it again, or you'll take bigger steps, and then over time, they become part of you.
I love that. I love that you said, like, you have to look at the evidence. You've put yourself out there so many times from the days back in the police department till now, and the evidence is, yeah, every time I put my neck out there, at least at some point in that, I'm going to be successful. Yeah, the real estate market crashed. That had nothing to do with you. You were still, before that, very successful at it. And I think a lot of people, when we have this, high performers get into the imposter syndrome fears, like, who am I to, like, try to go out on my own and do this and do that? That's a great thing. Look back at everything you've accomplished up to this point. That your high performerness, or I forget how you put it, it was very cute, like the I'm gonna make it happenness or whatever. But yeah, if you're the kind of person that puts your head down, is able to make it happen a million times in the past, like putting the mindset of this may fail, I may fail, like you don't even have that mindset. Your mindset is I will not fail. Like, and if I fail, I'm failing forward. Essentially, like, I will make things happen, and that's a really important mindset to adopt. And one more thing, you were talking about your toxic relationships. Jason Goldberg, who I will have on an episode that comes up, he said people are they trying to protect or they're projecting? One of the two. They're projecting or protecting, and neither of those are your concern. And that's exactly the mindset you took. It's like the people who just naysay because they themselves don't believe they could have done it. That's a lot of what they're projecting. Like you said, they have an employee or a fixed mindset, and they're like, well, I wouldn't do it, so I'm clearly going to project onto you. And so a lot of times, if you're hearing that negativity, realize they're just telling you their own stuff. That they're like, if you're thinking, oh, nobody thinks I can do it, so maybe I can't. No. They just don't think they can do it. It has no bearing on your actual potential to do a thing.
Yeah, you create your own reality. And I want the people that are in the same reality as me. Their reality is that, they're limited. You can't do this, you can't do that. And they're comfortable there. Great. That's your reality. I make my own reality. And if you want to come play in my sandbox, great. Open arms. But if you want to go there and tell me that my reality is wrong or doesn't work, well, that's your problem.
Right.
It doesn't have anything to do with me.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, I want to be respectful of your time because I know we are in, for those of you in podcast land who don't see this, we are in Jay's studio. This is your incentive to go watch this on YouTube, by the way, or to follow me on the Facebook so you can see it because we're streaming this live. But I know you have things coming up, but I want to, the short end of the rest of the story is you came to Hollywood and you did make it. You somehow went from, where we used to kind of rock bottom at after the real estate thing, and then you went to Hollywood, and now you are. And tell us what book you have authored in there.
So my book is well. First of all, as far as Hollywood goes, yes, I've accomplished a lot. I'm certainly not at the top levels of Hollywood. Maybe one day, if that's really where I want to be, right? But I'm really happy what I've accomplished here in a relatively short period of time, and I've managed to make some fantastic relationships, and the people that I deal with on a day-to-day basis are just they're just special, and make every day on the set a joy. My book is Spark: The 8 Mental Habits of Highly Successful People. And it is the result of a framework that I put together, a model of success psychology, if you will, on what I've learned from studying these people, these mentors and virtual mentors, the same, and kind of distilling their lessons. And it's broken down into 8 foundational mindsets, I call them, or mental habits, that is really useful for anybody who wants to up-level their life and their thinking. It's written in a way that's easily read, easily digestible, and at the end there's summaries, and it tells you how you can apply each one of these and take those baby steps to start. But two reasons. I wanted to help people who were in the same situation that I was, maybe lost, maybe didn't know where to go, or just needed a resource or another perspective on their lives. But also, it's the book that I would want my kids to. I don't have kids, but if I did, this is the book that I would want them to read. Things that they don't learn in school. They generally don't learn from their friends either.
True.
So, but it's a subject that I think that they should teach in high school.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because they just don't talk about these things, and it's so crucial to your success. When I coach people on reinvention, I created a framework there. There's a 3-part framework that starts with mindset. That's the first step in a reinvention. Is you have to get your head right so that you can frame your past situation and going forward you have the right attitudes and beliefs. Otherwise, without there, you're not going to be successful. Or any success that you have is sure to be temporary.
Yeah.
So, and then it goes on to talk about it's mindset, and then mentorship, and then marketing, which has to do with your personal brand and how do you attract business and good people into your life. And that's through creating value.
I love it. I can't thank you enough for A, being on, B, letting us do this amazing Facebook Live. I'm hoping that the camera is still running at this point because this is just the most beautiful set. And for sharing your story. There's so much that we can get out of it. And where can people find you?
My website is jaymenez.com. That's probably the best place to find all the different things that I'm up to. It's updated whenever things change generally. And then on social, you can follow me. Please follow me at the Jay Menez. And I'm most active on Instagram nowadays.
Yes, I didn't even ask you about your latest Instagram post with Gary Vee. You're gonna have to hear about that afterwards. But yes, follow Jay on Instagram. It's endlessly interesting because he's currently. Are you producing Impact Theory? Is that your?
No. I work on the crew there. I've been working with Tom for over 3 years now. Back when it was Inside Quest, the early days. I wasn't on the first show, but with some of the early shows I came on, and then it changed to Impact Theory, and I've been with that show since day one, and it's just skyrocketing. I'll tell you, Tom, what he is doing is, I'm totally on board. People ask me about that a lot. It's like, you're just growing for the show and got all this stuff. Why do you do that? That's in a way, it's like somebody else should be doing that, right? You should be producing that show. Well, they've got great producers. They don't need any more producers. But I'm on that show because, like great leaders do, he has articulated a vision for what he is doing there, a mission that I'm totally on board with. I agree with it. I support it. It's somewhat what I want to do also, which is creating empowering content through entertainment.
I love what you just brought up. I cannot wrap the show to save myself because I'm like, oh, you just keep saying interesting things. But the last thing, I swear, is that you said, okay, people think I should be doing something more, quote unquote, air quote, for the podcast world, important. You produce, you're a filmmaker, you have the studio, but you're crewing on this show. But like you said, part of the growth mindset is to take the ego out of it. Like it's not about how important I am on this show. It's how much I'm learning from getting to be around inspirational people. And I just love that you no, that's doesn't matter what I get to be part of this. And I think so many people in their, like you said, in their transformation, if they're trying to reinvent themselves, they're going to have to go through a period that may not be that glamorous, either because they have to, or like you said, because you choose to, like at this point. But it's not about the glamour. It's about what you can be learning and who you can be surrounding yourself with to get to that next level.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of the growth mindset is to be able to be a beginner. Again, you can't learn if you think you know everything. I don't care what level you're at. There's always something to learn new from other people. I learn things from the PAs all the time. I like hearing their stories. I like hearing their perspectives. I'm not 20 anymore. I don't have that same perspective. I've got a guy here that in the studio that just got out of he's an officer in the Air Force, and he's in here interning for me right now. He left a command where he had 50 people underneath him, and now he's interning for me. But it's that attitude and that growth mindset that he has that he just wants to learn.
Yeah.
So when I encounter people like that, I love to help them. And I think that's it's a very important quality, and I learn just as much from him.
Oh, that's so cool.
Especially with my social media, which I'm still trying to figure out.
You and me both, my friend. Okay, everybody, go check out Impact Theory, the show. Go get Mindset by Carol Dweck. Check out Jay on all the socials. Get his book, Spark. And until next time, thanks for tolerating my 12 fake ends to this. But until next time, my friends, happy quitting.
Thank you.
All right, Facebook, if you're still there, because we can't see what's going on, so we hope you're still there. We'll find out. But thanks for hanging out, and until next time for you, happy quitting. And go buy Quitting by Design, and then go buy Spark, and find everything on Amazon.